Well, welcome back to Life on Cars. Hope you're all well. And in today's episode, we're doing a very important job on the Rolls-Royce. We're going to change the transmission fluid and filter, which is a very important job because the transmission is often one of those parts on the car that is neglected. And I don't think it's ever been done on this Rolls-Royce. I don't think it's ever had a gearbox filter change. It may have had some fluid, I don't know. I don't really have much service history for this car, but I don't think it's had a filter change. So it's not going to do itself, is it? Come on, let's go. So IntroCar have sent me a gearbox service kit. So what do we get? Well, we get a new filter which goes inside the gearbox, and basically what that does is it filters the transmission fluid before it goes up that spout and into the gearbox. So I reckon that'll be the original filter that's still fitted to my car. We also get a new sump gasket for the gearbox. Looks really good quality. And we also get, we get a seal, which is for, it actually goes on to the inside of the gearbox casing. It goes into the casing, and that is where the filter locates, so that you've got an oil tight seal around that entrance there. So we need to change that. Some of the videos you see online, if you Google gearbox oil change, quite often they don't change that seal, but it's actually quite important because it needs to be oil tight so that the oil pump can suck the fluid through this filter properly. And we also get a new sump plug washer. So let's get cracking. First things first, let's get the oil drained out. So the last time I was laid underneath this part of the car, I was in Nottingham panicking because I couldn't get it out of gear. And I ended up, if you watch that episode, the very first episode, and I explained that I had to come underneath the car and disconnect the shift rod so we could get the car dragged out from its resting place. So yeah, it's up on axle stands at the front. It's not brilliant access for me because I'm quite a big guy, but I think I've got enough height to get underneath here and take this sump off. It looks like all the bolts are accessible, 10 mils and then a 13 mil for the sump plug. So I'm going to drop the oil out first. I'm going to use a jug so I can measure. This has got a measuring scale so I can see how much oil actually comes out. So let's get the oil out. Yeah, like I said at the start of the video, it's a super important job, this, especially if you don't know the service history of the gearbox. So getting this oil drained out is and the sump hole cleaned out and a new filter is definitely a good idea. Alright, I'm interested to see what colour this is. Yeah, it's ready. It's ready for a change. It's gone a bit dark. Should be a nice pinky red that when it's new. Well, we're nearly up to 5 litres and it's just slowing down now. The spec that I read online said 4.75 for a fill, but we've got 5 out of here. And if you know anything about automatic transmissions, this won't be all the fluid because there will be fluid in the torque converter. But the majority of the fluid does drain down the sump. So by doing a sump fluid change, you do get the majority of it, of the old stuff out. And obviously for what we're going to do by taking the sump off and changing the filter, we're going to get a little bit more out as well. So I'm going to let that finish draining, and then I'll start taking the sump bolts out. Over 5 litres. Let's get rid of that. Alright, so I've got a nice big piece of cardboard underneath the sump, because I'm almost sure when we drop this off we're going to get a few drips. I've started taking the bolts around the back. I've just been underneath, released all the bolts. I've put the sump plug back in for now, but that's going to get a new washer when we've finished and clean all the sump down. So now I've just got about 7 or 8 bolts left to take out from this side. I've put an axle stand underneath because I just want to, if it suddenly goes, I don't want it to fall and make a mess. So I'm going to put an axle stand underneath just to allow me to keep a bit of control when the oil pan starts to come down. I don't think this has ever been off, because all the bolts have got wax oil on them and they don't look like they've ever been disturbed. So I don't think this has ever had a gearbox service in 30 years. So right, let's crack on and get the rest of them bolts out. Right, just the last few bolts now, guys. It's starting to come down, so I think I should be able to control this with my hands. So I'm going to move the it's not stuck or anything, so I'm going to move the axle stand out of the way, and I'm just going to control it with my hand while I take these last couple of bolts out. Okay, one more. Right, here we go, guys. A bit of fluid still left in the sump. Okay, we're going to let that drip for a bit, because it's, see what happens is the sump sits above the height of the filter and you get quite a lot of drip. So yeah, we're just going to let that drip for a bit, and then we'll get less mess. Interesting. Very interesting. Surprising how much oil's left in the sump, isn't it, after we drained it? And then there's your there's the filter, that which we're going to be removing and replacing, and the rest of the inside of the gearbox. Tempted to just let that drip, you know, for an hour or so. It just means I'll get less mess when I'm getting underneath to clean things, etc. Right, it's been dripping for a bit. It's time to remove the filter, which should just pull straight down off of its spout where it goes into the oil pickup. So let's see what happens. Here we go. I'm going to put this drip tray underneath now and drag the sump and the filter out so I can start the cleaning process. Let's put the old filter in here. Deal with that later. Right, I need to tip the rest of this fluid out of the sump, get rid of the gasket. Old gasket as well. And then we'll see what we've got in the bottom of the sump. Just wiping the thick off so it doesn't make a mess. Okay. Not a huge amount of debris in the bottom. You can see there's a little bit of black. What happens is, as the gearbox wears, it throws off tiny particles from the clutches inside the gearbox. This is a magnet here, look. And can you see there's quite a lot of dirt on it? So it's done its job. It's picked up the muck and collected it. So yeah, but this is why we like to service these gearboxes properly, because we can get rid of all this that's been collected over 30 years. But I mean, if this is all that's in here for 30 years, I'm amazed. I mean, I know it's not a high mileage car, this, so if I'd seen a lot more than this, I'd have been worried at the mileage. But yeah, it's not too bad at all. So I can actually take that magnet out and clean it properly. So that's the next job. Get all the sump cleaned up, get rid of any raised bits where the gasket's going to go on. I'm going to use a brake cleaner for this, and we shall get it all lovely and clean. Right, there's our seal that we need to extract now. So it shouldn't be too bad to get out. We just need to gently lever that seal out. To fit the new seal, I'm just going to use a spark plug socket, which is a good fit. So we're going to locate the seal into the gearbox, and I'm just going to use the socket to gently knock the new seal into position. Et voila! I'm not joking, guys. The hardest part of this job so far has been cleaning this transmission sump, because it was absolutely covered in wax oil. And if there's ever a good argument as to why I always bang on about using wax oil, this is the original wax oil from the factory that got sprayed all over the transmission pan. And it's absolutely solid to get off. I've tried all sorts. I've tried thinners, I've tried degreaser, but yeah, it's good stuff, wax oil. Well, that's got the thick of it off. I think a little tickle over now with some wet and dry just to finish it off, and then it should be looking much, much better. Well, there we are, guys. What do you think? All lovely and clean, ready to go back on. Took some doing that, mind. That wax oil was super thick. Right, there's the magnet cleaned down with some brake cleaner. We'll get that put back in its little place. I've been soaking the bolts in some methylated spirits because their heads were covered in wax oil. So looks like that's coming off now. So I'll give these bolts a little wipe down, get them ready. Right, that's all 17 bolts cleaned and ready. The sump's ready, so I'm going to fit the filter now. So I'm just going to put a little bit of ATF, transmission fluid, around that entrance, and then we'll get that installed. Then it's time to refit the sump. Right, here's the new filter going in. There we are. So I'm just going to have one final, I've had a bit of a wipe round the mating surface, but I'm just going to have one final wipe round because there's a few drops of oil that have crept onto the mating surface, so a bit of brake cleaner one last time around here, and then we should be good to go with the new gasket and sump back on. Okay, I think we're ready now for the marriage. So I'm going to put about 4 bolts in finger tight just to make sure the gasket is aligned. Makes life so much easier that I've cleaned this properly. I can see exactly what I'm doing now. I can see that the gasket's aligned. I can see where the bolts need to go as well. So we've got all the bolts in finger tight, and we're now going to torque them up in a cross torque pattern to around about 16 pounds-feet. So let's get the torque wrench out and get these torqued down. Just going to fit a new washer now onto the sump plug and torque it down to 34 Newton meters. Happy days. Right, let's refill this sump with ATF. This is a product I've gone for, automatic transmission and power steering fluid, MV ATF plus fully synth. I do rate I've never had any problem with their oils, so I think we'll put 5 litres in first and then we'll start the process of getting the level correct. And if you didn't know, you fill one of these up via the dipstick hole or the dipstick tube. Remove a windscreen wiper relay before removing this cover to gain access to the gearbox dipstick. Don't worry, Rolls-Royce, I'm not going to get my hands trapped in the wiper arms and linkages. Gearbox. The length of that dipstick, flipping out. It's as long as the bonnet. Right, nice clean funnel. Take this nice and steady. Looks a bit different, that colour, doesn't it, compared to what we took out. Hope you enjoyed this episode, guys. And What do you think? Do you think it was worth the effort to completely clean down the sump? Put some hours into this Rolls-Royce already, haven't I? I should add it up really, try and work it out. But we're getting closer, day by day we're getting closer. Right, there's no point in dipping the oil yet because the oil will still be running down the tube and into the sump. And also, to get the level right on a automatic transmission car, the engine needs to be running, the transmission needs to be warm, and the car needs to be on level ground. And only then can we get the level right. And the instructions are on the dipstick. Full hot, check in park, transmission hot, engine idling, vehicle level, use Dextron 2, fluid only, and do not overfill. So because we're going to have the engine running to do this level check, I am going to pull the fuse for the wipers just for safety. The reason why Rolls-Royce have that warning on the cover here is this is the wiper arm here, and when the engine's running, if for some reason the wipers were to trigger, this turns like this, and if my hand's down there, this could come around and potentially break your wrist. So that's why Rolls-Royce tell you to take the wiper relay out or disable the wipers in some way so that they don't work. So I'm just going to pop the fuse out for that. So we've pulled the car out of the garage, it's all warmed up, been through all the gears, turned it round at the bottom of the street there, brought it back. So with the engine running now, I'm going to check that ATF fluid level. Just slightly down. We need to bring it up to here, so it needs a bit more in. I think we're about right now. Yep, looks like we're right up to the max. Look how lovely and clean that fluid is now, guys. Absolutely lovely. Very satisfying. Right, I can pop the windscreen wiper fuse back in now. Alright, we just need to pop this cover back on now and the transmission service is finished. There we are. Sorted. Ticked off. Well, there we are then. I hope you enjoyed the episode all about servicing the transmission on the beautiful Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit III. And if you did, don't forget to give me a like and subscribe. That would be fantastic. Hitting that subscribe button, it doesn't cost you anything and it does help me to grow the channel. So yeah, please go ahead and hit that button. And plenty of comments as well. I do like to read the comments that you send in. And I try to reply or like or view as many as I can. So what's next on the Rolls-Royce? Well, I think what we need to do is finish off the service on the engine. I've got spark plugs to do. I think I'm going to change the coolant as well. The coolant looks okay, but I don't really know the history of the coolant. And it's starting to get cold, and this car has to be winterized. It needs to go through the winter in the garage here, and I just want to make sure that the coolant is going to protect the engine if it gets cold. We are forecast snow soon as well here in the northeast of England, and temperatures dropping to about -1, -2. So yeah, I think get the antifreeze done before the weather gets really bad, and then probably just little bits and pieces, sort of sort the boot lock out. There's a few interior things that need sorting as well, which I'll share with you later on. So yeah, we'll keep plodding away on the Rolls-Royce until I get it to where I want it. And then the plan will be in the spring to get it out for an MOT. So anyway, take care, drive safely, and I'll look forward to seeing you all again very soon with something else on Life on Cars. Bye bye now, bye bye.